Hi, this is chapter 3 today of Runaway Success by Thaddeus Lawrence. And why I'm reading this is because some resourceful influencing tips I can take from his ultra endurance effort that he has done. Uh, when I read that, and you also might be looking at it, it was extraordinary endurance, and he was not sure whether he would complete it because there are certain things in life which was not under our control. So let us start with chapter 3 today. This is about Antarctica, the last desert, polar perspective. It happened during 17 to 27th November 2010. Antarctica, the bottom of the world, with almost all of its entire 14 million square kilometers covered in ice and snow. Antarctica is the world's largest polar desert, Earth's last great wilderness. As a continent, it is the coldest, driest, highest, and the windiest place on Earth. Due to its harsh climate, hostile environment, and harrowing isolation, there are no permanent residents. Roald Amundsen, the Norwegian explorer and first man to reach both North and South Poles, mused, "This land looks like a fairy tale." Meanwhile, Captain Scott, leader of the British Antarctic expedition, adjudged, "Great God, this is an awful place. Such is its extreme that Antarctica evokes polemic views. But all who have witnessed the austere beauty of this land speak of its wonder and splendor. Until the 19th century, Antarctica was referred to as the Terra Australis Incognita, unknown southern land. Although it remains largely a mystery, it has long captivated the imagination of mankind. Over the years, an assortment of explorers, scientists, and madmen have been lured into the enchanting white folds of the world's final frontier. As the year 2010 draws to a close, answering the enticing call of Antarctica is a group of men and women on an epic journey of discovery and competition. We are participants in the only stage race on the continent, the last desert Antarctica, considered the apogee of racing and achievement. The challenges that lie ahead are many, not least the fluctuating weather conditions. The circumstances can turn on the head of a pin and thus require some serious preparation, especially among the top rivals and more serious competitors. Italian contender Paolo Barghini, winner of Sahara Race 2009, is pulling out the stops in the Alps. This follows 10 days of training in Greenland. American competitor Ricky Bob is testing his gear choices and cumbersome winter apparel in harsh sub-zero temperature in the final few weeks leading up to the event. In South Africa, ultra marathon extraordinaire Ryan Sands is training on a treadmill in a specially designed ice chamber, complete with large fan to stimulate wind chill. For me, living in hot, sweaty Singapore makes adjusting and habituating to a climate of severe cold a far trickier proposition. Faced with a squeeze on funds and time, I take an unorthodox, not recommended, planning approach by imagining myself as a tiny and living in my freezer. The ground is another cause for concern. My training runs at home in Singapore take place on tarmac roads or small forest trails, so I am more familiar with asphalt and soft earth. It will no doubt be a very different proposition in Antarctica. About 98% of the continent is covered in ice sheets and the remaining 2% is barren rock. The footing is slick and running without traction comes with the risk of slipping and falling. Even without the ice, running in snow is a strenuous affair, akin to running on beach sand. As your foot descends with every step, it pushes the snow aside, and only a small amount of that energy is used to propel your body forward. In addition, since that foot is now swathed in inches of snow, you first have to lift it before the foot can be moved forward. You expend more energy and take more steps just to cover the same distance. Merely thinking about the physical difficulties tires me, and as race day draws ever closer, I put aside my anxieties about temperature and terrain. In fact, I put aside thoughts of Antarctica altogether, a contrast to the heightening buzz all around me. Perhaps it is the absurdity of the whole idea that people find so alluring, or maybe the daily grind of normal life simply cannot erase that natural sense of adventure that is in all of us. While other people's excitement over my expedition mounts, I find myself strangely calm and disconcertingly nonchalant. My enthusiasm is unusually muted, and I leave my packing preparations to the last minute. That I am granted the privileged honor of admittance to the inner sanctuaries of such majestic magnificence and soul inspiring splendor should be electrifying me to feverish levels. And my embarking on such an audacious athletic push of my physical and mental limits should be rousing me to the maximum. But it is not. Throwing myself into work, I try not to think too much about Antarctica. Is there something I am avoiding? It is a stellar cast assembled for the last desert. I cannot even begin to describe the extraordinary group of people invited to take part and in whose company I will keep for 10 days. Reading their racing profiles, I am blown away by their astounding achievements and staggering reputations. Here is an extract from the press release by Racing the Planet. Competitors representing 22 nations will participate in the last desert, Antarctica 2010. The 2010 event, the fourth edition of the invitation only race, boasts the most competitive field to date. Ultra running superstar Rian Sanders, 28 of South Africa, and Sahara Race 2009 champion Paolo Barghini, 50 of Italy, start as favorites for the race title in a field that includes 5 other competitors who have finished in the top 10 in at least one other four desert event. In the women's category, Mirjana Pelizer, 47 of Croatia, who placed second in the Gobi March 2008, Sahara Race 2008, and Atacama Crossing 2009, and Diana Hogan Murphy, 33 of Ireland, who won the Gobi March 2009 and placed third in the Atacama Crossing 2010, are expected to lead the charge. The last desert, Antarctica 2010, also represents the final challenge in a year-long campaign for 9 competitors, still hoping to complete the 4 desert Grand Slam, completing the entire 1,000 kilometers of the 4 deserts in 1 year. 2 competitors are going still one step further and intend to complete all 1250 kilometers of Racing the Planet's event this year. The 4 Desert Series plus the annual roving race, Stanley, 50 of Canada, and Peter Jong, 35 of Australia, have so far completed the Atacama Crossing, Chile, the Gobi March, China, the Sahara Race, Egypt, and Racing the Planet, Australia, 2010. No athlete has ever completed this feat before. Mark K. Gadams, Racing the Planet's founder and CEO, says, "It's fantastic to see that so many of the Grand Slam competitors have made it this far, and Racing the Planet is looking forward to welcoming another 33 people into the 4 Desert Club at the finish line. It is an all-star ensemble of past winners, top 10 finishers, and 4 Deserts Club members, not to mention the Grand Slammers who come from a different planet altogether. The physical and mental toll of taking part in just one 250 kilometers multi-day rough country foot race is enough to make most competitors attempt only one event per year. So the emergence of this lot who decide to complete all four of this desert race in one season elicits great admiration as well as a measure of disbelief. This clearly is a game for the big boys, and my own racing credentials are utterly lacking. I am acutely aware of my deficiencies. Am I out of my depth in such esteemed company, all at the ends of the earth? Who am I to be lining up alongside such powerhouses in a race to the extreme? I experience a multitude of emotions, and fear takes center stage. I am the child lost in the supermarket. I am the little boy locked in a room. I am the schoolboy whose friends have all run off ahead of him. The great big scary unknown lies in front, and I fear I'll be left behind in it. Conquering fear. I talk over my distress with a few of the other competitors. To my surprise and comfort, I find I am not alone. Helen Carter, an officer in the British Army, shares the same thought and sets me at ease. We are all deserving competitors and we are all in this race because we have proved ourselves. Participation in the last desert is by invitation only, and in order to qualify for a place, each one of us has had to successfully complete at least two of the other four deserts. The Sahara Race, Egypt, the Gobi March, China, and the Atacama Crossing, Chile. We have demonstrated our mettle and are as worthy as the next person to be making this trip. The sooner we recognize this fact and give ourselves credit, the sooner we can emerge from our shell of insufficiency and enjoy this entire experience. So here is one point you might have noticed that to enjoy something, you have to come out of your own inefficiency. If you think you are inadequate, you can't enjoy admiration, your own capability. You cannot self-appreciate, you cannot appreciate yourself and all that. So this is the learning at this stage. I realize that comparing myself to the other competitors does me not a jot of good. I have lost sight of why I am in the last desert and allowed myself to be caught in a draining cycle of fear. Instead of reveling in the company of such exceptional individuals, I have shrunk myself and ignored my own worthiness. Reclaiming my previous positive expectancy will set me back on track and change my self-talk of a I'm not good enough to I'm good enough. This is not about the other people, but about me. No matter that they are so fantastic, I am not here to beat them. I am doing this to be better than myself. Whatever happens, I will have gone further than I have ever done. I am reminded of the widely acclaimed poem by author Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking. So that there other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not just in some, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. The inspirational power of this passage has served as a rallying mantra for a generation of exceptional individuals willing to master their courage and motivate others to live up to their fullest promise and potential. All of us have earned the right to be here, and when we line up on the starting line, we start as equals. Now is the time for us to get on with it. The first test comes by way of the Drake Passage. This 1,200-kilometer stretch of water between the southerly tip of South America and the northerly point of Antarctica is the roughest ocean in the world. 10-meter waves have been known to punch out of the engines of cruise liners and blow out bows and windows of ships traversing the infamous waterway. We are on board the Antarctica Dream, an old Russian icebreaker ship now serving as a Chilean research vessel for the harrowing journey to the Antarctic Peninsula. We set sail from Ushuaia. This southernmost city in the world is the jumping off place for different cruises and expedition to Antarctica. In the space of a few hours, the serene cast-off turns into a perilous adventure. Our ostensible safety and cuisines contrast sharply against the whipping winds and walloping waves outside. From the darkness of the night outside, the warm, soft glow of the lights in our bobbing craft must seem inordinately fragile. Over the next 2 days, we are spared the toughest rock waves, but nevertheless subjected to the Drake's shake. Unceasing rocking and listing at absurd angles. The sea grinds up and the thick waves of the grey ocean water batter us. Waves lash at our ship and the constant slush of the vessel make the voyage a wholly treacherous experience. Listening to the wind howl, our anticipation rises with the sense of risk and accompanies our passage. The sailors must be amused at how such apparently normal condition might unnerve a bunch of hardy adventurers about to embark on a mad race. Highly susceptible to motion sickness at the best of times, the voyage forces me to seek solace in my cabin, where I become deeply acquainted with the wallpaper patterns and the bathroom. Just weeks ago, I was given carte blanche by my dietitian to double my daily food intake in order to put on some blubber for insulation. And here I am spewing everything down the toilet bowl. I proceed to spend the rest of the entire trip on doing all my nutritional preparations, wishing I had listened to the advice of a friend to ask the doctor to sedate me for the arduous voyage. Somehow, I make it to the Antarctica subsisting on a small bottle of mineral water and a mini tub of yogurt. Repeated vomiting had just about ejected every single morsel of content from my stomach. I console myself that I had merely gone through an alternative detoxification program and can now start the race with well-rested organs. The night before dropping anchor on our first stop in Antarctica, the medical director pay me a visit. The diagnosis is not good. I'm seriously dehydrated and in a weakened state. They hook me up to an IV drip and pump much needed fluids and sugar into my bloodstream. A double dosage promises I will at least get to the start line. I'm later mortified to discover that that is the only IV drip administered throughout the entire race. I have always envisioned a more glorious state of affair when I am conferred a one-of-kind status. But I will make do with this for now. Miraculously, I not only make it to the start line, but also feel fit as a fiddle as I take on the first two stages of the last desert. Each stage takes place in a different location on the Antarctic Peninsula. The first two are staged on King George Island, the largest of the South Shetland Islands, and home to a scientific base of many different countries. Two Zodiac inflatable boats make multiple trips, transporting our entire contingent from ship to land. This transfer is a laborious process. We dress in our full gear and log both our individual day packs and duffel packs to the deck. At a small size of 15 liters, the day pack contains our day's food and equipment which we carry on our back throughout the race. The much larger duffel is a waterproof bag holding all our emergency gear like rations, extra clothing, goose, down sleeping bag, and heavyweight parka. We line up on deck and pull on tall rubber boots to keep our feet dry. After soaking our boots in disinfectant, we descend the slippery metal dock stairs to the zodiacs for the short shuttle to shore. Awkwardly hauling all our gear to the designated start line, we attempt to get some shelter from the blasting wind in the lee of a rock wall. From there, we go through what will become a well-drilled routine of preparation. First, I change into my running shoes and put on my gaiters. Gaiters are a type of protective clothing for ankles and legs below the knee. They strap over the boot, shoe, and around the leg to prevent snow, ice, mud, and splashes of water from entering the top of the footwear, if required. I strap on my yak tracks, lightweight ice grips worn over the shoes. These should provide extra grip and traction on the packed snow and ice. It sounds like a relatively simple task, which it is. The tricky part is doing off laces and buckling gaiters while wearing a pair of thick gloves. Then follows a tug of war with Mother Nature, where we take off our thick outer jackets, great in keeping us toasty during the trip to shore, but too warm and heavy for the run itself, and stuff them in our duffel bags without the shrieking and running away with them. Even that has to be timed correctly, as we always want to begin the race feeling a little cool and let the effort of running increase our body temperatures. But at the same time, we don't want to be standing around frozen frigid while listening to the day's race and medical briefing before flag off. This whole process from loading the first persons onto Zodiac through to the race start can take anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. On day one, there is a lot more tinkering around with gear and attire since it is a new experience for many of us. The euphoria of stepping onto Antarctica for a very first time in our lives quickly diminishes. In anticipation of the race getting underway. The landscape here is dotted with research stations, and our figure of 8 circuit takes us past many of them. Apart from wet feet, the day passes largely without incident. At this point, my mind is still a blur as I adjust to our new pristine surroundings and come to terms with that I am indeed at the bottom of the world. But the need to be vigilant is brought home by news that 2 persons have already been pulled out from the event due to suspected hypothermia. An old Antarctica saying has it that below 40 degrees south in latitude there is no law. Below 50 degrees south there is no God. Below 60 degrees south there is no common sense. After a couple of days on terra firma, the whole idea of participating in an ultra endurance race on the wide continent does not seem so crazy after all. No doubt, sightings of penguins, seals, and an assortment of birds have contributed to a wonderland feel, but it is early days yet. The dictionary defines endurance as the ability to experience an unpleasant or painful situation for a long time, calmly and patiently. I have always considered myself more a sprinter than a long distance runner on track and in life. So, my biggest challenge in such an endurance race is breaking down the barrier of time. It is almost as if the last desert is a tailor made for me to master the practice of being in the moment in order to muster the energy to stay the course. The sterner test lies ahead. Deception Island is an active volcano in the South Shetland Islands of the Antarctic Peninsula. It is unique both in climate and landscape, comprising a distinctive mix of snow-covered hills, barren volcanic slopes, steaming black sand beaches, and ash-layered glaciers. Although its annual mean air temperature is -3 degrees Celsius, extreme microclimate exists around its geothermal heated water where temperatures of 70 degrees Celsius have been recorded. Its characteristic horseshoe shape range, a large caldera which was formed in a huge eruption. This caldera has since been flooded by the sea to form a large bay, now called Port Foster. Entrance to this bay is through a narrow 230 meters wide channel at Neptune's Bellows. It is the only place in the world where vessels can sail directly into the center of a restless volcano. Classified as a restless caldera with significant volcanic risk, this is the location and setting for stage 3. Sailing through Neptune Bellows in the morning darkness at 3 a.m., we are spared the anxiety of witnessing our ship navigate its tight axis and circumvent the razor-sharp rocks just below the surface. So it is that we awake musty-eyed, not long after to discover that in Antarctica everything is relative. Although Port Foster is known to be one of the safest harbors in a region notorious for its stormy winds, we find ourselves floating in the middle of a little blizzard. Our previous stage was prematurely cut short due to another snowstorm, and we had spent the remainder of the day in futility waiting out of the storm. In view of that disappointment, our mood mirrors the weather, and we worry that we would not get to race again. Thankfully, the forecast is optimistic, and we are instructed to get ready to board the Zodiac, taking us to shore for a 15-hour race day. If there are any sleepy heads in our midst, they are soon set right at the body shaker of a short ride on the Zodiac through the choppy waters. Falling snow and intermittent winds whipping up around us. There is an air of expectancy and excitement as we prepare our gear for a long day of racing, standing in the shelter of 3-story tall rusty tanks that used to store whale oil in the early 20th century and not far from a deserted British Antarctic survey base. We are given a short briefing on the course. The route is uncomplicated, straight down along the beach and around little coves. Warning: the ground is covered in snow, but this does not mean it is even. So watch out for little hollows below the snow that can twist or break ankles. Competitors will pass by well carcasses and abandoned wooden boats. Warning: there are 2 seals lounging by the side of the course. Leave them alone. Then veer left and up to pass called Neptune window. Warning: do not go past Neptune's windows as there is a 400-foot, 122-meter drop to the sea on the other side. Circle around and head back down to and along the same coast back to the start line. Then turn around and do it all over again. Total distance per loop is a whopping 2 kilometers. Warning: today will be a mammoth test of everyone's mental strength because it will get mind-numbingly boring. In the other desert races, the routes are point to point. We are given a specific distance to cover, and it is up to us to complete the stage in as little time as possible. It is different in Antarctica. The stages are arranged in a circuit. We are then given a specific number of racing hours, and it is up to us to complete as many circuits as possible in that time. There are 2 reasons for this arrangement. Firstly, in the extreme and unpredictable environment of Antarctica, the weather can close in at any moment, and when it does, we need to be evacuated to the ship as quickly as possible. The only way the organizers can reach the entire group speedily is to ensure that everyone is not spread out over too many kilometers. Secondly, restricting us to a tight area minimizes our overall impact on the broader fragile environment. Environmental protection is enshrined in the Antarctic Treaty, a significant section of which is dedicated to governing visitor conduct. The organizers incorporate these strict regulations into the rules of competition. For example, there is to be absolutely no littering, in intentional or accidental. Anyone caught dropping so much as a raisin or sweet wrapper or answering the call of nature will be immediately and irrevocably disqualified. While the precautions make logical sense, I, for one, would not want to be caught in the middle of an Antarctic storm, fully exposed to the elements, and I will be dismayed should my presence on Earth's final frontier contribute to any negative impact on this beautiful land. The course design does not take away some of the sense of adventure and exploration that we had all signed up for. Besides, how many 2 kilometers loops can one run in 15 hours? Many, and surely enough to drive one loopy. Test of temperament. So, how does one survive an excruciating course of boredom? Over several hours, it is easy to lose count of the number of small loops we have completed. This sort of format creates a feeling of not getting anywhere and not making any headway. You cannot tell how much closer you are to your goal. Like a mouse on a running wheel, the day is spent in ostensibly mindless circular movement. This cannot be exciting and fun. The one remotely sexy idea of ultra endurance racing in one of Earth's most breathtaking spots loses its sheen. How boring is the common refrain. So, how do you cope with that? One of the reasons I participate in these races is to use them as a personal test bed for psychological theories and models of thinking. Sure, these theories and models have evolved through rigorous experiments and are suitably supported by empirical evidence. But do they work for me? Are they practical in real life? Do they stand up to scrutiny in these settings? These are some of these questions I'm curious to find answers to, and such events are splendid avenues for my research. Moreover, in my work helping individuals shift mindsets and embrace new challenges, I serve them with greater integrity when I augment their learning with my own personal experiences. It is easy to give words of wisdom and advice to other people, but when I follow them myself, my actions will roar above the sound of my words, and my credibility established when I preach what I practice and talk my work. What we think will happen is what happens. This is the essence of the self-fulfilling prophecy. I decide at the outset to choose my focus with care and turn to the Chinese language for direction. There are two characters for the word crisis. The first signifies danger and the other spells opportunity. By definition, then, a crisis is fraught with danger, but also an opportunity for learning and growth. Which part do I want to emphasize on? I ask myself. In relation to this race stage, how can I approach it from different perspectives? Instead of looking at surviving loops, how about thinking about it in terms of thriving? In place of enduring repetition, what about enjoying it? How can I look at this format and consider it to be an advantage? I search for possibilities and adopt a more empowering positive mindset. After all, embracing something is far easier than struggling against it. Having a friend beats having a foe by my side. The routine is crushingly tedious. Once we get over the marvel of the place, the actual task is deathly boring and it is hard to maintain focus. This day calls for a unique blend of extra exactitude and mindlessness. I mentally break the circuit up into different chunks. The first section hugs the coastline with the beach and its steaming volcanic sands on our right and the snow blanketed hills to our left. Although relatively flat, we have to pay attention to small ankle twisting and potentially race ending trenches, which some runners fall into. Then we turn inland to begin the anti clockwise climb up to Neptune window. Gentle at first, this path quickly works its way along the side of a steep bluff. From the top, it is a sheer and slippery drop back down to the coastline. The final stretch is basically the first section in the opposite direction. The first lap is exhilarating, everyone breaking into a running pace as if to release all the pent up energy from the previous stage. Then we had averaged less than 10 kilometers. Today we intend to make compensation. Running also serves a more practical strategy in keeping it as one. That is one of the key differences between racing in the hot and cold deserts. In the other races, it is common for competitors to spend extended periods of resting and cooling down in the shade of checkpoints or to slow down on the course, stopping or even slackening the pace is not a viable option in Antarctica as the fast cooling body becomes susceptible to hypothermia. This is especially so when the tree bending winds pick up and temperatures plummet. English explorer Apsele Cherry Garrard is a precise in his musing. I have never heard or felt or seen a wind like this. I wondered why it did not carry away the earth. I am given a first-hand reminder of this when at Neptune window I take off my gloves so I can hold my camera to video the immersive line of runners. Within a minute, I feel my extremities stiffening up and from the cold, and I am encouraged by a volunteer to get going. Moving at a rapid pace not only increases the kilometers covered, it generates heat and keeps bodies warm. After the first lap, everyone finds and settles into his own pace and knuckles down to face the demands of a long day. This is the time to put theory to practice. Every time I begin a section, I marvel at its newness. It is new because of the physical changes since the last time I was there. The snow has melted from the many runners following the same line, and in its place are small streams of water or exposed rock and gravel. It is new because I feel different. I am attuned to the sensation of beads of perspiration trickling down my face and spine of the weather is warm. Conversely, I have an extra layer on if the winds pick up. It is new if only because where I have just come from is different. By focusing my mind on this freshness and allowing myself to be amazed at what can sometimes be dismissed as unimportant or commonplace is refreshing and invigorating. I am like a curious child on an exploration. I am on marvel mode. I learn to forget the previous lap in order to run a good lap. At the same time, every section is no longer new because I have been here before. As the day wears on, I cover the same ground over and over again. I can feel the sigh in my bones, and if I do not let it out, the tedium gets to some people, and I surrender to losing count of the number of laps I have chalked off. I force my mind to the present and open it to the opportunity to become better at tackling the same task. I try to maintain my pace and smaller steps instead of pounding up the hill. I experiment with brisk walking instead of slow jogging. I attempt an uninterrupted climb instead of taking regular breaks. With each effort, I get to practice over and over again and discover different ways of doing things. I learn to cherish and welcome the many repeated chances to get better and to enjoy the process. This is not to say that the entire stage is a bridge. The most extreme conditions that most of us have ever run in begins in driving snow of 2 degrees Celsius, which necessitates the use of sky goggles. We are chilled to the bone from a savage wind. The icy snow pelts and slices our faces. The thin wooden staff bearing the national flags of all competitors are bent over, double in their flight to say, stay upright. Their flexibility is severely tested. Someone accidentally drops a packaging and the wind instantly whips it into the distance. A number of people go after it, throwing themselves onto the snow in futile attempts to rescue the tiny piece of plastics. The whole spectacle resembles a comedy scene from an old Chinese martial art film where the bungling disciples chase after a squawking chicken. Someone eventually rescues the runaway plastic and all is well, at least on the litter front. Barely on an hour later, the slippery conditions mandate the use of snow spikes on our shoes. The last thing anyone wants is to fall over on the ice and be forced to withdraw it with broken bones. The winds then die down momentarily, giving us a welcome reprieve. Blue fills the sky and the sun emerges with a vengeance, raising temperatures high enough that we are forced to take off our heavyweight gear. But the one doesn't last and gale force icy winds kicks up a snowstorm, sending the degrees down to well below zero. In this way, the weather swings throughout the whole day. It is a thorn in our sides, and we complete the day covered from head to toe in an assortment of neoprene face masks, windproof jackets, and mountaineering gaiters. The wildly fluctuating conditions add to our overall discomfort, but the constant dressing and undressing help break the pattern of monotony. Each adaptation gives me something to think about, helps the brain stay fresh, and encourages the rethink of tactics. It adds an element of changing calculations, which I turn into a game. In order to win, I have to stay ahead by stripping before I get too hot, clothing before I freeze, drinking before I dehydrate, and eating before I get too hungry. Even little thing like the process of eating while moving can be fine-tuned. In time, I lose track of the number of laps I am covering and I become more aware of my buoyant, buoyant mood. I begin to feed off the positive energy around. One person responsible for keeping the mood upbeat is American competitor Mark Jaggett. A powerful runner, his earlier disqualification from possible hypothermia does not halt his participation. Now fully recovered, he is determined to overcome his own disappointment and continue playing a part in the last desert. He takes the competitor under his wings and settles in strides next to her. For a big chunk of the day, he coaxes, cajoles, and cheers her on. Along the way, he has a positive word or nod for several others, like myself, who pass by them. His sprightliness is contagious, and I take a leaf out of his book, dishing out high fives and cheery smiles. My change in physiology induces an improvement in my psychology. The last few laps advance in glee-coated labor. My cheeriness is such that when the notorious catapultic winds force our early retreat, I actually attempt to influence a race official to let me race another loop. That request is unfortunately denied, and I board the Zodiac for the short journey to the ship, shivering uncontrollably from the cold but grinning like a Cheshire cat. I am ranking in the bottom half of the pack, but I am feeling on top of the world. The competitive edge, cooperation. Killer whales, starboard side, came the captain's call over the tannoy speaker. The Antarctic dream leads to her right as everyone on board, armed to the teeth with sharp eyes, digital cameras, and video camcorders. Leaps up from his languid stupor and scrambles to catch a glimpse of one of the world's most powerful predators. We are in the astonishingly beautiful Geralech Street and en route to our location for the final stage of the last desert Antarctica. The Geralech Strait is a watery wilderness dotted with bluish icebergs and framed by snowy peaks. Days of being out in Antarctic water has so far yielded nothing in the form of large marine mammals. And with our appetite whetted by onboard lectures on whales, we are eager to see them in the flesh. Now it seems our patience is finally to be rewarded. Seasickness and lethargy instantly dissipate just as excitement and adrenaline levels shoot up. And like elated children, we jump and point and yell and whoop. Where are they? How many are there? Killer whales or orcas are the largest of the dolphins and easily recognized from the distinctive black and white coloration. Although small compared to some species of whales, killer whales are the largest known predators of mammals. Males average over 6 meters in length and usually weigh around 5,000 kilograms. The largest male ever recorded is almost 10 meters and weigh 10,000 kilograms. Immensely intelligent social animals, they are one of the world's most powerful hunters and widely recognized as an apex predator. This means they are kings of the sea and lacking natural predators. They prey even on large shark. Much like pack of wolves and pride of lions, or orcas live and feed together in a team known as pods. It is to be our lucky day, and our luck brings with her a very big bonus on a scale beyond our wildest fantasies. Right before our very eyes is a pod of some 20 orcas, a silent army of sleek, streamlined bodies knifing through the icy waters with balletic ease. Occasionally, they would swim at fast speeds to break through the surface of the water and then fall back with gigantic splash, a maneuver known as breaching. At other times, they simply slap their tails and poke their heads out of the water to have a look around. Our meeting coincides with their mealtime. On the menu is a hapless group of penguins, and for the next hour or so, we are treated to a National Geographic spectacle right before our very eyes as they systematically set about pursuing and polishing off the toxidoid birds. It begins innocuously enough. The orcas first break into smaller pods and swim around and under our ship as if stopping to check us out. We lap it all up, we and I, and snapping pictures and recording videos. Then somebody spots a group of penguins, and that is when we know we are about to witness something really special. If we can spot the penguins, then the orcas must surely have them in their crosshairs. The attack seems disjointed, even messy at first. Small pods gunning for isolated penguins. But soon, the masters of the sea reveal their divide and conquer strategy. Splitting up into smaller pods, they set up a perimeter ring to encircle their prey. Then one pod sweeps into herd the penguins onto the middle of the arena. With no room to run, the different pods rush in and attack from several angles. Clearly, they have done this before and favor this deadly calculated tactic. A frantic rush to escape duly ensues, and patches of sea turn into small battlegrounds of furious splashing. Amid the chaos and blur of frenetic feeding, an occasional triumphant orca emerges, repeatedly tossing its prey into the air as if to show off its catch and demonstrate its dominance. But it is only the beginning. What happens next is a dramatic occurrence so rarely witnessed that it even sends our normally composed ship crew and researchers into wild animation and fervor. Once the penguin appetizer is done with, the killer whales move on to a meteor entry. Humpback whales, acrobats of the ocean, These powerful swimmers migrate annually from summer feeding grounds near the poles to warmer winter breeding waters close to the equator. Several times heavier than orcas, mother humpbacks and their young calves swim close together, often touching each another with their flippers in what appears to be gestures of affection. On this fateful day, one such mother and child pair of humpbacks find themselves in an epic struggle for survival. Coming from behind and the sides, several killer whales surround and swarm all over the humpbacks in an apparent effort to prevent evasion. The focus of the orcas is concentrated on the young calf, and on numerous occasions, some even leap onto the back of the whale in what our experts believe to be an attempt to keep it underwater. Poised in this way to herd it under the water and hold it for a length of time, the predators would drown the humpback. Time and again, we watch astounded as the distressed mother makes every effort to fend off the attack and protect her young. But whenever they swim, they fail to break away from their attackers. The assault is relentless, and members of this pod take turns going after their prey. Each bite litters the sea with chunks of meat and invites others to participate in this feeding bonanza. Birds of every kind seize this opportunity to rain down on the buffet spread, no doubt delighted with this easy bounty of nature. After a while, our ship breaks off from the scene. Perhaps the captain still remembers that we have a race to run, or he wants to spare us the final fate of the severely injured humpback whales. But this close encounter with wildlife holds us all spellbound. The entire show of savagery and survival is as breathtaking as it is horrifying, as compelling as it is doleful. While we are taken aback by the live display of ferocity and bestiality, many took to cheering on the penguins and wheeling the humpbacks to safety. We are all too aware of that this is part of the cycle of life and death, and that we are truly privileged to have been granted this rare view of Mother Nature at work. That the orcas are able to execute their plan with such perfection is due to several factors. For such large creatures, this is not a test of speed but of endurance. Their method is not complicated. Work effectively as a team to wear their adversaries down. Evidence abounds on how these intelligent animals frequently cooperate on hunting raids. Only by hunting together in such a sophisticated manner can they attack such large prey and share it. Because our TV diet mainly comprises action scenes and dramatic footage portraying the animal kingdom as a vast and violent world of eat or be eaten, we assume that only the law of survival of the fittest rules natural life. And in this metaphorical battlefield of savage predation, bloody competition takes center stage. Thus, we typically react with surprise and wonder when presented with a demonstration of symbiotic relationship between species. The truth of the matter is that we have a grossly distorted understanding of what competition really means. Researchers from the British Antarctic Survey and National Institute of Polar Research in Japan once did a study on the feeding behavior of albatrosses in the southern Atlantic Ocean by attaching miniature digital cameras on the back of 4 of those large seabirds. A total of 28,000 images retrieved from the cameras show a close association between the albatrosses and large marine mammals like the killer whales. By actively following orcas, albatrosses are able to locate their prey and feed more efficiently on food scraps left behind from a hunt or on fish directed to the surface by the marine mammals. This insight mirrors numerous other relationships, such as those between tropical seabirds and tuna, oxpeckers, tick birds, and rhinos, zebras, and wildebeest, remoras, suckerfish, and sharks, etc. What about within species where contention for the same and scarce food source is high? Surely the forces of evolution dictate that the law of the jungle must apply and therefore led to deadly competition. We watch a lot of this on nature documentaries and we witness it in everyday life. Members of the same species fighting over a kill in much the same way that rival organizations fight tooth and nail for dominance in the marketplace. Or are we seeing only a small part of the puzzle? For many of us fortunate enough to enjoy a basic level of education, the chances are high that our daily concerns lie far beyond that of physiological needs, the lowest rung of Abraham Maslow's hierarchic theory of needs. This theory states that all of a person's basic needs are the equivalent of instincts in animals. Humans start with a very weak disposition that is fashioned as the person grows. Within the right environment, people will grow straight and beautiful, actualizing the potentials they have inherited. Human beings strive for an upper level of capabilities. And any fully functioning person with a healthy personality seeks the highest reaches of consciousness and wisdom till they arrive at the level of what Maslow calls self-actualizing. This is described as a person's need to be and do that which a person was born to do. We are all intrinsically motivated to actualize our potential and be the best that we can be. This is made easier when others compel us to do our best. I receive an exceptional lesson on this notion of competing to be my best before the end of this race. Beauty to behold. Stage 4 takes place in a magical spot of breathtaking beauty and winter wonderland whiteness. Winke Island is one of the islands in the Palmer archipelago and features British and Argentine field huts designated as a historic site. A Gentoo penguin colony is spread out over its glacial scenery. Our landing site is Dorian Bay, a cove nestled in a rocky isthmus. Just getting to the bay itself in an incredible experience. Our expert zodiac drivers skillfully maneuver the nimble crafts around mini icebergs and small slabs of floating ice. We get so close to the small blocks that we can see right into their hollow air gaps. A surreal turquoise hue emanates from these towers of mystics, giving the entire place an almost dreamlike quality. Notwithstanding the soft groan of the zodiac engines, the surreal blue light amplifies the shroud of silence. I feel as if we are entering a hallowed dimension, bathed in tender tranquility. Shore is a rocky floor where we change into our racing gear before climbing up a near vertical section to the top of a glacier. From there, it is a short trek to the starting point. We are standing in snow that comes all the way up to our knees. This is virgin snow and ice territory, what we conventionally term as nice. Everywhere I look, I took, everything is whiter than white, a giant bed of new linen. The scenery all around is amazing, a grand vista dating back eons. Ice-clad mountains of rock loom over mirrors of water all around us. It is all so pristine, so pure and so fresh. Just breathing the air is to participate in a rite of cleansing and purification. I am in heaven. We cast our eyes over our circuit. It is long, steady climb uphill, past a few penguin rookeries, and then further up more rising hills toward the crest of the glaciers. Leveling off slightly, we overlook a glacial lake, still as a picture and a gleaming like glass. Continuing up the long stretch of a hilly spine with an expansive view of Port Lockroy, a historic site operated by the United Kingdom Antarctic Heritage Trust. A steep plunge finally takes us back down to the checkpoint. It is a 2.5 kilometer circuit in deep snow all the way. In addition to the usual precautions, we are reminded to stick strictly to the course and not attempt to veer off track or cut any corners. Living in wait beneath the thick blanket of snow is a glacier strewn with hidden crevasses. Over 95% of Antarctic is covered with a vast ice sheet. It is the largest single mass of ice on Earth and is bigger than the whole of Europe. This ice sheet is constantly on the move, and huge rivers of ice, known as glaciers, are pulled slowly by gravity from the continent's interior towards the sea. Ruptured by underlying rock along the way, the ice cracks and breaks. This results in crevasses up to hundreds of meters deep forming on the surface. Crevasses are the number one hazard encountered by those who travel over glaciers. It is impossible to detect these deep cracks, and in the absence of rope protection, it is best to be on our guard. I shudder to think of the consequences should any one of us unfortunate enough to fall into one. Our other caution has to do with the scattered penguin colony. There are hundreds of the charming diminutive butlers waddling about, and their defecation taints the snow beneath them black and brown. Their distinctive smell punctures the pure air and somewhat diminishes their cute factor. Because of the fairly large size of the penguin colony, the organizers remind us of our code of conduct. Keep a precautionary distance from the little birds and move slowly around them. We are in their territory and they have the right of way. This course is not designed for runners. This nice depth varies from calf deep to thigh deep depending on where one steps and how tall one is. It is unlikely we will be running or walking, rather, we will be way through. The almost non-stop climb throughout compounds an unfavorable topography. The logical tactic is to tackle this in single file and follow in the footsteps of the person in front. Let the front runners cut open a tack. Predictably, no one surges forward at flag off, and the whole field tentatively falls into a little behind the leader. It is just after 2 p.m., and we have a 7-hour race day ahead. This is the final stage of the last desert, and quite certainly my final day racing in Antarctica ever. Except that I decide at the outset that I will not be doing any racing today. Today is the day that I am a tourist. I have traveled halfway around the world, including close to 30 hours on an assortment of aircraft, and endured a topsy-turvy 2 day journey of a hellish boat ride. I am finally here on one of nature's most remote and untamed paradise. Her stunning beauty is a scientist's delight, an adventurous playground, and a photographer's treasure chest. It is my own dream come alive, and I intend to spend my final day appreciating this rare privilege. I am last to cross the start line, camera in hand and grin on face. It is a glorious day, balmy by Antarctica standard. The sun bursts through drifting clouds and a gentle breeze licks our faces. The calmness soothes the penguins and they placidly go about their daily tasks, unruffled by our invasion. I envision a day spent lightly skipping along the happily snapping pictures. A couple of other competitors have the same idea, and we play tourists, pointing and gawking, taking delight in everything. After a while, my fellow companion pick up the pace and leave me to continue ambling along. The main competitor body has powered on ahead, and the individuals are specks in the distance. I'm all by myself, but there is no danger of getting lost here. Everyone has followed in the same footsteps, and a rough course is slowly being fashioned. My spirits are high, and I'm still enamored with the beauty that surrounds me. I just wish I could share this with those I love. Photographs are excellent visuals, but they cannot convey the true atmosphere, smell, and expanse of the environment and the emotions they evoke. In all my years as a solo traveler, I have visited some of the most incredible places on earth and accumulated scores of unique experiences. I have found that such precious moments are best shared with someone I love, someone with whom to savor the unspoken splendors of life. I imagine myself telling and retelling all the stories of this trip and visualize my audience listening in rapt attention. I am shaken out of my daydream by stomping sounds behind me. I glance back and see the unmistakable figure of Rian Sandys from South Africa, showing the form that won him each of the other four desert races. Rian continues to assert his dominance over the field, if not the tough conditions. His first day performance blew everyone away and displayed his physical eloquence in this discipline. Such is his commanding lead coming into this stage that he already has the last desert sewn up. And now, even before I finish one complete round of the course, Rian is coming up to lap me. It would be very difficult to overtake before this ice is broken up and a path properly created. So I step aside and let him pass, completely starstruck. I plod on and finally make it to the top of the ridge overlooking the checkpoint. One lap about to be completed, and it has taken me over 45 minutes to cover the 2.5 kilometers. It is a sharp drop to the checkpoint and should provide some respite to my worn out thigh muscles. I contemplate hurling myself over the edge and letting gravity speed me down, but it is not to be. I discover that the ground underfoot is not soft and powdery as I have hoped, but hard and chunky. Going downhill at this early point requires us to lift our legs up before placing them down again. I feel like an overdressed toddler striving awkwardly in slow motion. As I start my second lap, a few of the more powerful runners overtake me and we exchange mutterings of encouragement. I am bored with playing tourist. There are only so many pictures I can take of the same scenery. My early thoughts of strolling through this entire stage now seem absurd and feeble. I should be out there giving this a good go. I put my camera away and tighten my backpack straps. Time to get this snow so on the road. It is no use. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Well, not so much weak as inept. Much as I want to get going, my body just conspires to trip me up, literally up to my knees in snow in many parts. I tread where others have tread, slotting my feet onto the holes created. The inconsistency of the depth is especially disheartening. One moment I set my foot down 10 centimeters and the next I sink to my thigh. Later on, as more people traverse the same path repeatedly, a bigger and flatter trough will open up. Until then, I will have to slog through this on my own. I struggle to come to terms with the uneven surface and scramble to establish any form of momentum. Even in more straightforward sections, the unceasing uphill is tough and taxing. My return on effort is poor. My forward movement is negated by my backslide. It is the familiar one step forward, two steps back tussle. I simply cannot get enough grip to push me onward. At this rate, I will burn out well before the scheduled 7 hours for today. As I huff and puff and I feel my frustrations rising and irritation boiling over, this does not help matters, and the more I stump my foot down, the more I recede, soaring my foot further. I even managed to trip and fall over a few times. This is pathetic. How drastically things have changed from just an hour ago. This last day is surely a test of my perseverance and hunger to finish. As a savior appears behind me, plodding through the crunchy surface in vibrant harmony with the elements in Gunnar Fahing. Gunnar is a medical doctor from Norway. It is often joked that Norwegians are born with the skis on their feet. This alludes to their climate and their prowess in winter sports. Gunnar's grace on the snow is testament of his breed. He glides in a manner that belies his 59 years of age, but is very much consistent with his experience. He pauses to offer some sage advice and light motivation. I am to relax and focus on the road ahead. Part of the tranquility of moving in the snow is that it requires me to be in the moment and focus on every step I take. I may be sore in muscle I did not even know I have, especially the stabilizing muscles on my inner and outer legs. They have to work twice as hard to keep me upright. If I shorten my stride by taking smaller steps and lighten my contact with ground, I'll be more efficient and reduce the risk of slipping, falling, and straining my muscles. Change in attitude. I watch as Gunnar floats away. The short time is godsend. It breaks my pattern of self-defeating exasperation and allows me to start slowly all over. I take a deep breath and clear my mind. I'll get through this. With the mantra of short and light chanting in my head, I open up my sensory equity. I become more in tune with what is going on around me. I feel the lightness of my feet coming into the contact with the ground. I relax my eyes and see more of the terrain. I visualize my winged feet skimming over the surface, almost in partial fight. I hear the crunchy reverberation beneath my feet, sounding like I am in a large pot of sugar. It is still dreadfully tough, but at least I am making some semblance of headway and not letting it go get into me as much. Turning around to assess how many more people will be coming up to pass me, I notice the leading ladies of Dinah Hogan Murphy from Ireland, Marijana Pelizer from Croatia, and Samantha Gash from Australia. These three superstars have been ranked at the top of their category in their previous four desert races and are now running neck and neck for it for the last desert top female spot. Word has it that out of mutual respect and in the spirit of friendly competition, they will be racing this stage together. But for these keen athletes, friendly does not mean slack. Still very much giving their best, they bear down on me like a bullet train. There's still a determination of and solid tenacity is discernible beneath their colorful hoods and face masks. As I stand there watching them pass, something comes over me and I get swept into their energy field. In a singular instant, I decide to shadow them. I figure that instead of trudging along all by myself, there is no harm in my riding on their coat trail and using their tempo to establish a rhythm for myself. The best way to get out of a rut is to break my pattern of self destruction and generate radical change. And there is nothing more radical than attempting to keep up with three of the fastest female runners in the race. I hop quickly back onto the trail after the last of them passes by me, and I try to stick as close to them as I can, as close as long as I can. I tell myself to aim for one lap. If I manage to stick with them and last an entire round, I can be very proud of myself. To catch such an intimate glimpse into their race tactics would be an education. To keep pace with their march would be an achievement. To establish such a disciplined clip would boost my morale to no end. It turns out to be one of my best spontaneous decisions. Once I slot into their rhythm, their their beat forces me into an altered level of consciousness. I am now racing an entirely different contest. Cresting on a winning force, life now becomes more straightforward, much simpler. My mind shifts from noticing the heaviness of my rucksack and winter clothes. I disregard the changing weather. I overlook the arduous lay of the land. I simply have no time nor space to worry about the conditions or trail or anything. I literally keep my head down and go. My sole concern becomes the pair of feet in front of me. It is all I see, and my peripheral vision extends only as far as the cloud of snow atop the narrow trench. we are running in. As soon as one foot leaves its space, I plant my foot in the exact same spot. Left, right, like a soldier's speed march. It is move or be left behind. My work is cut out for me. On more than a few occasions, I get too close and headbutt the rucksack of the runner in front. I do not think she notices. Maybe she even appreciates the slight prod. Then I get far too close and accidentally trip her up. She crashes headlong into the snow and ends in a heap of leaves, poles, and shock. Mumbling a flimsy apology is all I can do as I extend my hand to help her up. I avoid all eye contact that will surely communicate how furious I am with myself for being an idiot. But everyone recovers from my gaffe and we are soon on my way again. I make it through the first lap with them. Passing the checkpoint, I hear my bib number called the unison with theirs. I am elated and inwardly congratulate myself. As we top up our water bottles, I set myself a new goal of carrying on another round with them. When I still manage to hang on 2 rounds later, I stop counting and resolve to keep up with them all the way. Merely keeping pace with the women completely absorbs me. There is no time to plan ahead, and I feel like I am operating purely on reflexes. I am the amateur playing with professionals, the disciple trying to keep up with the masters. They are the puppeteers, and I am the puppet. My only two strings are attached to my feet, and they control them in tandem with theirs. In order that I do not trip anyone up again, I pull back half a step. It is the propitious move. I is the trench is now fully formed in a narrow and rugged way. It is just wide enough to fit the width of one large foot. I feel like a model trotting down a runway as I place one foot in front of the other while maintaining a semblance of balance. That grace is unceremoniously broken whenever I tumble. This typically happens when my foot catches one of the many bumps on the inside wall of the trench. It is difficult to make out edges and angles because everything is white. The surefire way of finding out whether something is there is by kicking or tripping over it. Falling over is invariably vexing or a variety for a variety of reasons. The unwanted physical interruptions breaks my mental state of flow, snapping my attention out of its fluidity. The depth of softness of the snow also requires a delicate balance of light force to get back on my feet. Press down too strongly and my arms sink all the way through to where they offer no useful resistance with which to push myself up. In the time between falling over and getting back up, I will have lost ground on my companions and have to sprint to catch up, extending precious energy. To regain their momentum, I need to work on slowing down my quickened heartbeat and frenzied breathing. This method of sticking close to my pacers puts me at the mercy of their own strategies. I slow down only when they do so. I pause to change a layer of clothing only when they do so. I fill up my water bottles only when they fill theirs. I cannot afford to let them get too far ahead. Anything more than 20 meters, and I know it will take too much for me to narrow that gap. So intent am I on keeping up that I surrender even my own bodily needs. To go to the toilet means losing them forever. I use rapt logic to reason that if I drink less water and move faster, I will work up enough sweat to drain my body and bladder of fluid and moisture. This is the thinking of a desperate man, an addict, and I am hooked on riding the powerful energy of the now. Perhaps there is a scientific support for my line of reasoning, or it is a shift in attention elsewhere. Somehow that plan works. Over time, things become easier. I freewheel down the steep downhill section. It is like skiing in fresh powder with no skis. Even the upward climbs pass with relative comfort. I look up once to take in my surroundings and I'm amazed to discover that we are actually traversing one of the steepest sections of the course. It is just does not feel like it. I am on a natural high and my body is in full flow. So locked in concentration am I that it is only much later that I am told of a mini avalanche that occurred over on in the next mountain. I have somehow missed its thunderous roar. Everything happens in a soft blur and I am lost in joyful abandonment. My thoughts and body blend them seamlessly with the environment and activity. I am in what athletes call the zone, that adrenaline and serotonin fueled state in which everything flows perfectly. By being totally present and giving my full attention to a compelling yet challenging task, I experience liberating exhilaration and gripping enjoyment. It is a feeling that I'll cherish for a long time. This is how life should be like, and is what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi presented in his bestseller, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. He described flow as the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it even at the great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Flow is synonymous with passion. There are people in this world who do not enjoy what they do. They derive no pleasure from their daily activities and go through life just getting by. They merely survive. However, there are also people who love what they do. They start each day with a relish because they get to do what they love and work does not seem like work to them. They identify with what they do and their work speaks to their most authentic being. They thrive when we do something that we love and get better at it. Time takes a different course entirely. An hour feels like 5 minutes. Day feels like hours. In some way, running this stage is resonating with my spirit. It feeds my energy. It stirs the fire within. The day goes by in a kind of athletic ballet. When we pass the checkpoint for the upteenth time, I hear a voice call out, "This is your last lap, guys." For a brief moment, I am puzzled. The skies are cloudy, but there is no sign of any impending snowstorm that might necessitate yet another early evacuation to the ship. Then someone else shouts, "It is 9 p.m." It is 9 p.m. What? I break out of my concentration to see beaming expression on the faces around me. This is no hoax. It literally is true, with a mixture of disbelief, exhilaration, and pride. It dawns on me that I have kept up with the women for 6 whole hours. Essence of experience. I am astonished that I have managed to keep going in such a demanding and relentless pace. Never in my wildest fantasies would I have thought myself capable of such an effort. Having the girl to tag onto this leading group of female runners, I have managed to summon a singularity in focus to keep pace with their punishing tempo. My reward was an entire day spent in the optimal experience of flow. And this is the beauty of such events. They offer an opportunity to go beyond the boundaries of ordinary existence. The extraordinariness of what we accomplished is affirmed by the slew of heartfelt congratulations and display of emotions at the finish line. A strong sense of triumph, of dreams come alive, is palpable. I make a beeline for Samantha Gash and convey my indebtedness to her for lending me on my best. There really is no better descriptor. Day of racing ever. She accepts my thanks and then stuns me by saying that she is actually grateful I was on their tail, for my presence had actually spurred her on. I am uncomprehending, but she assures me that it is true. Apart from confirming that I was not a Free rider, this comes as a key insight into the nature of competition. There are numerous races happening in such endurance events. On one end of the spectrum are a number of highly trained athletes belonging to the professional and elite classes. German Tobias French is one such individual. His experience gives him the confidence to approach such contests almost like a vacation. At the same time, he recognizes that what we also do see is an equally high number of less experienced recreational runners. For them, such a race is a full of uncertainties, both mentally and physically. There are people you would think can never finish such a race, but they do. And you see them gaining self confidence day by day. You observe that through their struggles, this race is somewhat a life changing event for them. That is a big wow for me and makes me happy for them. As one of the less experienced and less honed entrants, I am well aware of what my participation means. My ranking reflects not so much how I have fared against the field, but how much I have given my all. The Latin roots of the word compete are competire, which means to strive in common or to seek together. The world of individual foot racing has revived this common quest for me. Instead of being distracted by beating someone else, I center on what is happening. Instead of paying attention to extrinsic, and I become conscious of my own experience. Instead of asking how everyone else is doing, I reflect on whether I gave my all. Did I become a better person? Thrown together into bleak surroundings and charged with a single mission, my competitors are also my teammates. They are there to get me stronger, to get me to top of my game. When they get better, so do I. And that means surrounding myself with role models, mentors, and like-minded individuals. As someone once said, if you are the smartest in your circle, then it is time to find new friends. Ultimately, what we seek in life is to actualize our potential. The process is made easier when there are others around us who force us to do our best. My best is not measured in the final result but on my actual pursuit. In other words, the activity itself. This is why the journey is more important than the destination. A penguin rookery in the shadow of twin giants. Penguins frolicking in Antarctica while the Antarctic dream drops anchor in the background. Zodiacs transport competitors to shore. Looming dark clouds, blizzards cut short every stage of the last desert 2010. A videographer settles in for a day's work. Strong winds threaten to rip the jacket off a competitor. Icebergs en route to Winkies Island. The surreal blue hue emanating from icebergs. Traffic builds at a penguin crossing. Wildlife has right of way in Antarctica. The never-ending uphill climbs at stage 4. South African Rian Sanders powers to yet another win in 4 deserts. The sun momentarily breaks through at the bottom of the world. So that was chapter 3, guys. Hope you have enjoyed and thank you for being part